Alright, welcome to the first episode of Without Reference. I'm Chappie, and today I'm going to be covering the ODST build. First and foremost, I need to basically point you at Andrew DFT's channel. I'm using all of his templates and, for the most part, following a lot of his tutorials. A lot of this video series is going to specifically cover about what I'm doing differently. So, first thing different I'm doing is the helmet. I actually decided to 3D print the helmet. Credit where credit is due. All of the STLs and 3D models I used for the helmet came from my mini factory. It was Jeffrey at Nintendroid. I'll link it in the description below. That is the model I'm using. So, the first thing I had to do with the 3D model was prep it for printing. My printer isn't big enough to handle a project like that, so I had to break it down into a lot of smaller pieces. Using Mesh Mixer, I was able to break it down into 8 parts, not including the visor buck, because that'll be the last thing I print and do for the helmet. Even broken down into parts, these still take a long time to print. Right now, my estimated time on printing the entire helmet, buck excluded, is about 100 hours and taking just under a kilogram of filament. So this entire thing is killing about 1 roll for me. This happened about 5 hours into a 12-hour print for the helmet. What happened was the filament actually snapped. So I got back to seeing about ½ an inch above the piece, not printing anything. So I just get filament back in there, restart it up. So, on to the actual construction of the armor itself. Andrew DFT does a fantastic job with the resources he has available to him. His entire costume is done with literally nothing but a X-Acto knife and hot glue. I'm fortunate enough to have access to more materials than that, such as Dremels, barge cement, all kinds of cosplay things I've just been collecting over the years. And so early on I decided that I was going to barge rather than hot glue. I prefer the seal that it gives. It's a little cleaner, and it is a strong bond between the two. And so, after printing out all of the patterns provided by Andrew DFT, in those videos down below, I decided I needed to make a test piece. I want to make sure that this fits properly. I'm a fairly large person, and the patterns were not meant for large people. Keep in mind, my entire plan from the beginning was to make a test piece. I'd already made mistakes, which we'll get to in a minute. But onto the test piece. I decided to start with the shoulder piece. The shoulder piece is a super iconic piece of the ODST armor. That and the chest plate are probably the most recognizable parts of it. And so I decided to throw a test piece together. I didn't really need it to look good. I knew this was going to be a test piece. It was going to be a throwaway, so I didn't bother with all the embellishments. It was about getting the base construction and seeing how it fits on me. Came up with the shoulder piece. I tried it on, and I didn't think it was terrible, but after looking at it, talking with the other people that I'm doing the cosplay with, we all kind of agreed it's a little small for us. So after some thinking, we decided, all right, let's scale up the patterns 15%. So, on that decision, I just have a base printer to print it out on, so print it out, scale up 50%, but it's going to have to be printed out as a poster, meaning each page on that ebook is going to take 2 regular sheets of paper. This is when I realized I made my first mistake. I printed out the entire pattern for the set at 100%. And now I have to reprint it all out at 115. Knowing I was going to do the test piece from the start, I should have just printed out the test piece at 100%. But I'm dumb. I decided to use a different test piece for this one, and that was the chest plate. Making sure that fit was pretty important. And so, I printed that out at 115%, taped it together, cut it up, and then made myself a dummy of it out of poster board. After trying that on, I was pretty certain that that was going to fit well. Once I get the foam in, foam curls a little differently, it adds a little thickness to it. I was feeling good about that size. Now let's talk about construction. Like I said, Andrew's video was done entirely out of a hobby knife and hot glue. I, thinking it'd be a so much better cosplay move to do it out of barge cement, cut out a piece, and tried it out. To this result. The problem with barge cement is the channels you dig in there have to be exact to the geometry you're trying to build, and hence the L I got out of it. My second try was significantly more successful, and it was a bit more of a hybrid technique. I decided to use barge specifically because of the way that it makes the seams look. The way they seal up is much easier to clean up and much more appealing than the way hot glue seals foam up. However, I knew that it'd be far too difficult to get all those angles exactly cutting them out by hand. So I tried using hot glue as well. What I ended up doing was just putting barge cement on the edges of the parts that need to be glued together. So that way I could then fill the channels with hot glue. And while the hot glue cools down, it gives me enough time to mold it by hand and make sure that it's in the correct shape that I need it to. And then once it comes together, it is a solid piece. I'm probably going to end up having to do significantly more parts in this fashion, so I'm glad I found that out earlier with a much smaller piece. So that's all the progress I made on the build so far. So yeah, this is a little half-cocked and, if we're being honest, probably not quite ready for production, but I set a timeline for myself and I'm still glad I made it. Hopefully the quality will go up as this goes on, but this is about what you can expect to see from me in the future. I really hope you consider subscribing and keeping following along with what I'm doing.